In the previous video, I showed the difference between absolute and relative referencing. I would make sure that you watch it, okay? There's also, what you might have seen as well as we were working through this, was when I was adding adding absolute cell referencing, there might be like a dollar sign in between, just a dollar sign in between or a dollar sign in front. That's called mixed reference. And basically what that means is the column reference changes when you copy that cell to another column or row because it's relative. So basically it means that if it goes one way, it stays the same. If it goes the other way, it could stay the same or whatnot. So it just depends on how it's set up. Okay, so let's go ahead and start applying this then. So there's going to be specific formulas that you're going to be able to do. If you're using the book, then you'll see it on page Excel 134. But for you all, you'll see it here. Okay, so when we calculate the cost of goods sold, we're calculating the revenue times 1 minus the margin percentage, meaning how much the margin percentage we're taking out of the revenue. Gross margin, the revenue minus cost of goods sold. So we need to do this one first before we can get to this one. Okay, so you'll notice that if you mess up one of these formulas, because they're constantly used, it's going to mess up if you don't do one right. Okay, so let's get started here. So we're going to create the cost of goods sold, and I'm just going to use the formula to help me out here. So we're going to do equal B4 times parentheses 1 minus B19. Okay, so what that means is the margin here, we're going to assume, okay, that it's the revenue times 1 minus the percentage here, okay. This is when it's going to be very important to use absolute cell referencing. This is why. When I move this over, you're going to get this. Okay? Fine. Looks normal enough. Except if you look, when you calculate the gross margin, which is this minus this will come up to a number like 33,000 something. This will come up to 0, 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 and this will come up to 0. Well, why? Look at the formula. B4 times 1 minus B19. If a cell is empty, that's 0. So B4 times 1 is just the same thing. Okay, B4 for this C4 times 1 is 62,500. Now, watch what happens when I use absolute cell referencing. I'm freezing B19, so I only use B19 even if I fill it across. So I take this, fill it across here, and look, it actually changes. This is going to be a big deal when you finish this. If you notice that things are not adding up right, check up the absolute cell referencing. Okay? Alright. Now we're going to move to the next one here. We're going to go to gross margin. So we're going to do equals revenue minus cost of goods sold. Okay? So $43,000. Okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and autofill. And we don't have to put absolute cell referencing in here because when we move it across, there's values. That's what we're going to be using. Whenever we use these numbers here, that's when we're going to use absolute cell referencing because we're not putting anything over here. These will all be zeros. Okay, so B4 minus B5, these are relative cell references, so they change as you fill them. If they don't change as you fill them, that's an absolute cell reference. Okay, now we're going to do for bonus here, and I just want to make sure that I'm not moving too far ahead. Okay, now we're going to calculate the bonus. We're going to basically make a decision here. Okay, if sales revenue will be a specific point, it will give me a bonus. If it's not, we don't have enough money to give out a bonus. Okay, so we're going to make decisions using the if function. So, equal if the revenue is greater than or equal to B21, that's our sales revenue for bonus. We're going to reference B20 if it's true, which is our bonus, 0 if false. So what this argument is saying is if B4, if our revenue is greater than or equal to $65,000, if it's true, if this is true, which it is not, because it's 55,000, we can give out a bonus of 3,500. But because it's not, it's going to be 0. Now, as I go ahead and move this across, you'll notice it's 0. Well, why is that? Why is that there? Why is it 0? We see in our argument that 65,000. That's true here. So why is it 0? What's going on? Well, if you look, I didn't put my absolute cell references in. So B21, because we're using B21 and not C21, D21, or so on, we need to make this an absolute cell reference. So we're going to click here, absolute cell reference. Click here, absolute cell reference. So it's freezing these values. So when I move these across, you'll see that B4 changes to C4 because we're using these values. But B21 and B20, they're just constant. So the absolute cell reference allows values to stay constant. So because this is 65,000, there's going to be a bonus of 3,500. Because that's 90,000, 3,500, and so on. Okay, now we're going to look at commission here. So commission will be the revenue times the commission percentage. Okay, meaning the commission that we dish out is 25% of the revenue. So we're going to do equal the revenue times the commission. So the commission we're going to dole out to our employees is going to be 25% of the revenue. 25% of 55,000 is 13,750. We didn't have to use a calculator for that. Excel did that for us. Okay, so before we use Excel, we had to do this all on paper. We use a calculator. Mistakes could be made. We don't have that luxury here. It's all automated. So we're going to move this across here. And same thing, it's going to be 0. Well, why is it 0? Look at our absolute cell reference. Move this across. Okay, site rental. B4 times B23. Okay, so our site rental is going to be 10% of whatever we make. 5,500. We move it across. We look, oh wait, that's not true. Absolute cell reference. So it's different. Marketing. Okay, marketing is going to be 5% of the revenue. And you can probably get by now, we need to change this to an absolute cell reference, F4. Or you could put the dollar signs. Move this across, and you're good. Equipment repair and maintenance. Oops, I just noticed I had a spelling error there. And same thing here. Make sure that you change that if you typed it like I did. Okay. Equal B4 times B25. Change to absolute cell reference. Oops. This should have been B24. That's very important because I could have just lost some money there. That's why it's very important for you to put in your values exactly how they should be. Okay, so 3.5% of 55,000 is 1,125. Okay, now we're going to calculate our total expenses. So our total expenses are going to be a sum of these. So our total expenses, our projected total expenses for January will be the sum of all of these, which will be 23,925. Okay, so what does this tell me? Okay, this tells me that I should make $55,000 in January. With the goods that I sell, my ice cream, it costs me money before I make money. So it's going to cost me for January $11,687.50 to have ice cream in my freezer. Okay, which means that my gross margin is $43,312.50. That's how much revenue I'm really getting. Okay, now the expenses. Okay, so obviously we calculated our expenses. This is the total amount of expenses that we have here. Now we're gonna figure out the operating income. Basically what that means is, with all the operations that's going on, with everything we're expending, we're marketing, we're making, all that stuff, how much are we making? Are we going in the black, which is positive, or going in the red, which is negative? We're going to figure that out by doing B6 minus B14. We're going to see how much money we have, how much we've made, and how much we have after expenses. That's $19,387.50. So that's how much money we have extra after the month. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and calculate, fill this across, and do the same thing here. So if you have any questions about that piece, let me know.